WrestleTalk!
AEW Grand Slam has some pretty big stuff coming out of it. The Eddie Kingston ROH title win, an excellent main event with MJF and Samoa Joe. And there was a pretty good match going on between Jon Moxley and Rey Fénix for the International Championship. However, something went wrong right at the finish. But actually, as it turns out, it might have actually gone wrong right at the start of the match. We'll dive into this a little bit more because Jon Moxley and Adam Cole actually both got injured on this episode of the show. Welcome to the WrestleTalk Podcast review of AEW Dynamite. I am Luke Owen, D-A-D. I'm joined by Tempest.
Tink, tink.
And please do press the subscribe button to this channel. Give us a little thumbs up as well. Everyone in the comments say hi to Pete, who is in the room because he was just recording a breaking news video. Where is he? There he is. Because SmackDown's moving to Fox, everyone. Sorry, it's moving off Fox, moving to USA Network. And apparently Raw and NXT are moving off the USA Network.
Crazy!
So Pete is doing a break.
Check out the breaking news video for the full details.
It'll be live soon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But everyone also say hello to Pete. And if you're watching on VOD, please get in your comments down below. But if you're watching live, obviously join the live chats and get in your Omega chats to WrestleTalk.com/support because we'll read out every single one of them above the $5 amount. And let's all be sensible about this chat because
It's wrestling.
yes, I've already seen some fairly, I would say, thick takes on this. Someone in the chat said that AEW needs a performance center because you know who could do with some wrestling training, Tempest? Rey Fénix.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who could do with some wrestling training, Tempest? Bryan Danielson. They could sure use some refinement, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Adam Cole, he could certainly do some with refinement as a professional wrestler.
He definitely didn't spend 7 years in a performance center, whatever it was, 4 years in a performance center.
But yeah, so at the start of this match, and apparently this is where the injury happened. Everyone thought the injury happened right at the end of the match. Because what happened was Rey Fénix hit a Michinoku-style driver on Moxley, and referee Rick Knox went to count the 3. Well, he counted 2.
He went to count the 2.
He went to count the 2, did not count 3, but Mox didn't move. Mox then tells Rick, count the 3. And so Rey Fénix picks Mox up again, hits another driver, a Michinoku-style driver, and the referee counts 3. So the report is that he actually got injured on the dive right at the start. And I thought something had gone awry then. Because I wrote in my notes here, Fénix does a dive off the stage early, which seems to rock Mox. Like, he wasn't moving as... I mean, I was basically like, is this selling? Or is this just Mox does not look like he is... he's not all there.
Sure.
Like, you see get rocked a little bit. And the report is that Moxley then just decided to keep going. And it was only until that finished that he decided, we should probably end this now. So Fénix didn't know, the referee didn't know, and then Mox was like, I should probably stop wrestling now. And Dave Meltzer also reported that it's a minor concussion that he might have suffered off the dive. Tony Khan and the rest of the Combat Club spent time with him after the match. He seems to be fine, he seems to be okay, just a minor concussion. Mm-hmm. But it did kind of leave a bit of a black cloud over this episode of Dynamite.
It did, and it's highly unfortunate because there's a bunch of different sections of this match and what happened in there and around that we can talk about because I thought this was a fun match. I thought the structure of the match, the story of the match was all going along at a very fun little pace here. And then, of course, the finish happens, and I have a lot of thoughts on the finish. But it did just kind of feel like some of the wind was taken out of the sails of the show as a whole, for sure. Definitely Rey Fénix winning his first singles title in AEW. Like, I was shocked, and I was like, if they had just done that, and granted, I understand that likely was not the finish here, because this was an audible being called.
Sean Ross Sapp said that this was not the planned finish for the match.
Right. But if Rey Fénix is going to win his first championship in AEW, singles championship, I'm well excited for that. That sounds rad. but there's no way that I could be excited for it. Not only because, somebody in the match got hurt, but because the finish was just F to high heaven.
Yeah, really so. And it's because of Nox not counting the 3.
Yeah.
On the first bit. Like, this is why WWE, for a long time, I don't think they still do this, but for a while, directed their referees to call all matches as a shoot.
Mm-hmm.
The idea being, if you don't kick out, then it's your fault. Because what that does is it protects from effed finishes like this, like No Way Out 01, where El Hebner just like 1, 2, or WrestleMania 2000,
sure,
that sort of thing. You avoid situations like this. So because Nox didn't count the 3 on Mox, the crowd was like 1, 2, oh, you effed up, and then there's just confusion, and then Phoenix does the move again, and then he counts the 3, and you could just tell the crowd instantly were like, something went wrong there.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Nox had just counted the 3. And people have been like, oh, wow, the title's changed. Then they'd have seen the Doctor in the ring and be like, okay, something went wrong, or we're doing an angle or something. But because you had the botched count, it's instantly like, as I wrote in my notes here, well, something went wrong there.
Yeah. Now, I've been thinking about this since I saw it, because this is the first thing I did when I woke up today. I put the show on, just in case there might have been an edge popping up. I didn't want to be hampered by any spoilers whatsoever. I stayed off my phone, didn't even take it off sleep mode, got no notifications. I was watching this show. So I've had all day to think about this, and part of me wants to give a little bit of slack to Rick Knox in this situation, because obviously tomfoolery happened. This was not a plan. An audible was called. There are extenuating circumstances here. But also, as the job of somebody who's meant to protect the wrestlers and also just count 3, I think this was some of the worst refereeing I've ever seen. Because not only do you hold the count up and essentially ruin the match, but also it means that the guy with the concussion has to be picked up and dropped on his head again.
Mm-hmm.
Because you didn't just count the pin and move on.
Some arguments can be made to that. Some of that's on Phoenix. He didn't have to do a move again. He could have just done the cover again.
Yeah, I get that.
Wouldn't have looked good, but it's not like this version looked much better.
No. And that's it. Like, the slack that I want to give to people extends also to Ray Phoenix, because in something like this, it is just like, you're just kind of like panicking because you hadn't planned for this, and now you have to readjust on the fly, and it's stressful, and someone's hurt and such. But
and by all accounts, didn't know until the finish.
Yeah. But man, like, I'm just looking at this, and like, maybe they need to change the way that they do the refereeing, in that you go to WWE's at least one time model of count it like a shoot, because like, never have I seen a referee more hold up his count for a non-finish.
Yeah.
Like, at least with Earl Hebner, this is a gripe I have with Earl Hebner anyway, but you can always tell when something is a 2 for him, because he goes like 1, 2, instead of going 1, 2, 3. Rick Knox just goes 1, 2, and the whole crowd just goes, what?
Yeah.
What was that?
And he starts checking the shoulders.
Yeah.
As if like the referee is like, oh no, the shoulder was up there.
And like, they have to on commentary say like, maybe Moxley twitched. It's like, you have never seen a man kick out of a move less.
Yeah.
He did not move.
He wasn't moving.
He didn't move. So it's a really tough situation. I don't want to pile on to people and everything, but I think this was really poorly handled.
Yep.
And it's disappointing, because otherwise I was going to be like, it still is a good show. Don't get me wrong. You know, there's some really big moments, some cool angles and title changes and everything. Really good main event. But like, what's the opening thing we're talking about here? It's this match just being ruined.
Unfortunately, well, we found ourselves in a situation where we were sort of damned if we did and damned if we didn't. Because I didn't want to lead with this, because people always have a go at us for then leading with the negative or leading with an injury or leading with a botch. And it's just like, why can't you guys just focus on the good stuff? But then if we hadn't have done this, it'd be like, oh, AEW bias. If this were WWE, you'd have led with this. So I was like, do you know what? F it. Like, this is the big talking point. This is what everyone is, unfortunately, this is what everyone is talking about coming out of this show. But I find the conversations around this massively, like, I don't know, man. Like, last year, Cody Rhodes wrestled with a torn pec and everyone was like, bravo. Like, Triple H wrestled a match with a torn quad and everyone went, Jon Moxley wrestles this match with a concussion, or like Bryan Danielson wrestles with a broken arm and everyone was like, what, AEW, where's the safety procedures, where's the care for the wrestlers? And I don't know where the line is then. Like, I look at the Matt Hardy situation from All Out.
I was just thinking the same thing.
I look at Matt Hardy and All Out 2020 and I'm like, that is bad. How in the hell you let that carry on? You can go back and watch the live reactions we did to that. We just kept saying, like, this match should not be happening. This match should have been stopped a long time ago. Because you could see that had gone wrong. And that he could not stand up. But in this situation, like, Mox, everyone thought the injury came right at the end.
Yeah.
It's only now that the reports are coming out that the injury happened at the start.
Yeah. That's where it is different. I think every incident in every company needs to be kind of looked at in isolation, sort of, because you do have things where if Cody Rhodes wants to wrestle with a torn pec, I still don't know exactly where I fall on that. Is it a stupid idea? Yeah. Is it make for one of the most dramatic matches ever? Sure. But I think there's a big difference between wrestling with a torn muscle or a broken arm or something and wrestling with a head injury. And I think that is something that should be looked at differently than this or that. But this one in particular, it's not like he was like completely knocked out like the Matt Hardy situation, like when Alex Reynolds was knocked out in the ring and was just lying there on the apron.
Like, that is a match that should have just been stopped.
Yeah.
Or at least, like, pause for a moment while we just move this guy out of the ring, or like, let's all go and wrestle outside while this guy can get tended to, as opposed to just wrestling around him like they did.
Yeah. So there are varying degrees of this in particular incident here. And if it's a conversation about whether AEW needs to be a little bit safer or WWE needs to be a little bit safer, like, yeah, I think everybody needs to be a little bit safer in this regard. And sure, that's a larger conversation to be had about wrestling in general. But when it comes to head injuries,
there's no messing around with it.
There's no real messing around with it. And if Moxley doesn't necessarily communicate to somebody as soon as it happens, like, hey, I got my bell rung, maybe we should take this home quick or something, then you probably don't know. But I think all of that is more or less a separate conversation from just count the friggin' pin.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a very different thing. Like, I think at the very least, Knox should have just counted the 3. But then again, if Knox had counted the 3 and he wasn't supposed to win the title, would have all the heat come down on him for botching the finish? Because it's probably not going to come down on Mox, one of the top stars in the company.
Well, no, like, that's the thing. I don't think it would then come down on any, but maybe for like 20 seconds where they go, what did they do? What do you do that for? And then, oh, he was hurt. Okay. Understood.
Yeah, but if we're having two separate conversations here, I suppose you're right. Like, they are sort of in tandem with one another, but are two separate conversations. Like,
yeah.
I'm playing a worldview. If Mox was not hurt and Knox had counted to the 3, the heat would have come down on Knox for counting the 3 and messing up the finish. Probably not on Mox for not kicking out, even though really it probably should have done. And in some ways here, I kind of think like, is it Mox that we should be looking at here? Like, and I'm not saying, like, I'm not trying to single out Mox here, but the idea of tough guy wrestler. Because, like, Triple H wrestling through the torn quad, because he's tough guy wrestler and you've got to finish the match. And Cody Rhodes was tough guy wrestler. Like, I'm booked for the main event of this show and I'm going to finish it and I'm going to do this, even though it probably wasn't the wisest move and it might have added to his recovery time. Bryan Danielson was tough guy wrestler in wrestling with a broken arm. I feel like that's the bigger discussion here of just like, do we need to kind of move away from this idea of tough guy wrestler going out and finishing the match. Because from like, you know, this is pure speculation on my part, and perhaps that's ill-advised. But if Mox like got his bell rung and then continued to wrestle the match, and then was like, actually, you know what, I can't. I think something has gone wrong here. Then, yeah, there's a conversation that needs to be had around that.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I think this is an incident to be looked at in isolation, because I think we have seen more of the business starting to move away from that. I mean, in WWE anyway, like, you know, there's the famous story of Danielson getting into it with Triple H backstage when they called off Danielson's match with Randy Orton on Raw in 2013 because he'd hurt his neck, but he was just like, I'm going to finish this match, and they called it off, and he went and had a screaming match with Triple H because you finished a match with a torn quad, nobody ends my matches, and blah, 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 blah. But they were trying to get away from that and actually protect the wrestlers.
Which I think is the right move.
I think it's the right move as well. This one, I do think, until we know for sure, like, when conversations happened, what sort of communication there was between people, it's a difficult thing because all the audience members were fooled in the sense that, like, none of us knew that Moxley had suffered a concussion when he had, you know? So if we were all fooled, I see no reason to doubt that Rick Knox or Ray Phoenix or whoever is going to know for sure when it happened. And if he just gets his bell rung a little bit and again is like, I think I'm okay, gets up, and then after a few minutes is like, nah, I'm not okay, let's just take this home. I think that is still, like, it's not ideal, it's not great, but I don't know exactly how much different that could be other than just like, oh, I was knocked loopy even for a moment. Stop the match, guys. I'm hurt.
And I'm not even going to use we know more now because that is the argument that wrestling as a whole has used for so long. We didn't know how bad concussions were in the 90s. When I was like, well, you did because everyone in every other sport knew how bad concussions were. So, like, I was just going to say, there's a bit more breaking news. Apparently, Mustafa Ali has left WWE. So, he might have to do another breaking news video.
You can wait for that one. We've already started this show.
And so it's probably bigger news than the SmackDown one. I don't want to say, because I feel like people are going to come down on me here being like, you're trying to defend AEW, and I'm not. And I'm not trying to, like, defend anyone that's in the ring. I'm just trying to look at this through a logical lens of how did this happen? Mm-hmm. How did we get to a point where a man with a minor concussion, minor's not exactly, like, that's not a key word either. A concussion is a concussion, whether it is minor or not.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just looking at, like, how did we get to this point? And I have seen so many times now, wrestlers have to finish the match, and, like, that's what we have to do. And that, for me, that's where the conversation is of just like, protect yourselves. But maybe, like, it is a case of Mox just didn't realize how bad it was until he got to that point and was like, actually, do you know what? I can't go. I don't think I should be going anymore. Let's call this off here.
Yeah.
Like, you know, should Danielson have finished his match with Okada? He felt like he had to. Was it wise? It's not for me to say. Like, that's really for Danielson to make the choice. But if it was me, I probably wouldn't have done. But I'm not going to say, like, Sin Cara should have, like, kept on wrestling when he dislocated his pinky finger. You know what I mean? Like, you know, there's varying different sort of levels of this. But it did very much leave a cloud over this match and over this show. And the thing, actually, so the last point I wanted to make on this is, it's something you said earlier, like, you know, we should be really excited that Ray Phoenix won a singles title. He can go on a bit of a singles run here. I don't think he will.
No, probably not.
Because I've also seen a lot of AEW history to show that when plans have to change, Tony Khan cannot pivot. And likely what we'll see is Ray Phoenix might have a match next week on Dynamite to defend the belt, and he'll get no story, and then he might just lose the belt. Or he'll just lose it back to Mox when Mox is back to wrestle again. And that'll be it. I mean, you can go countless examples of this within AEW where an injury has derailed a storyline and Tony Khan doesn't know how to fix that. But really, there's no bigger microcosm to look at now than the women's division. Because that women's division has suffered since Jamie Hayter went out injured. And Tony Khan was like, I've tried nothing and I'm all out of ideas.
Do some 4-ways.
Yeah, I'll just do some 4-ways. A triple threat. It's you now. I'll put the belt on Sheeta. Put the belt on Saraya. And they just sort of are floundering until Jamie probably comes back.
Yeah. My counter to that, because I don't think you're wrong by any means. I'm not anticipating Rey Fenix having like a 6-month... We already know.
I know, I'm not telling you.
Hello.
I'm grabbing the tripod. I need to record another video.
Never stops working, that man.
Yeah, what a day.
Yeah, what a day. Ben got his first point in speedrunners. So, my counter to that is that, no, I don't think that Rey Fenix is going to go on like a 6-month run and have a long, prolonged storyline and such like that. However, I think with the international title, which sort of has just become the open challenge title, I think you can have a satisfying short title run for Rey Fenix if he just defends the belt once a week or so against varied opponents and has some great matches as he's won to do.
He can do it. Like, Phoenix is awesome.
That's what got Orange Cassidy's reign to where it was before the story really started of him being worn down and everything. So if they wanted to have it be something special and have Rey Fenix defend the title against Penta on Dynamite and say that these two brothers are wrestling for a championship on this show, I think that would make this title reign feel really special, because it needs to feel special after starting this way.
Yeah, because you went on an incredible title run with Cassidy, then put it on top guy Jon Moxley. You need to keep the aura of that belt and not make it feel like a third singles title.
Yep.
You know, kind of like how the TNT title felt for quite a while, where it's just like, oh, you're just a secondary prop for people to carry around.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just turn this into the Lucha Libre division.
Honestly,
just
though,
have him go. He can have matches with Vikingo, Commander, Bandido, and just go out there and just be like, oh yeah, we're just going to do AAA matches on Dynamite every week.
And you know what? I would love it.
I wouldn't hate it, bud. Like, Tony Khan loves his history. Look what it got WCW over. Like, that was what a lot of people were talking about. Were the Lucha Libre matches that they would just put on first on Nitro or on pay-per-view and just get the crowd hot and hot. It still works now.
Yeah. I mean, I was so excited to come in here before this whole conversation shifted to this, because I was really excited to come in here and be like, man, I love the Lucha Brothers as a team, but honestly, I think there's more money in both of them as singles. Because Rey Fenix is such an awesome wrestler and Penta's such a good, charismatic wrestler that I'd really like to see them both kind of be their own focused person for a little while. And I sort of got what I wanted here with Rey Fenix winning a singles title and hopefully getting a bit of a singles run out of it. But unfortunately, that's not the main point of conversation, but we're still having it because this guy is so great. And weekly Rey Fenix singles matches on TV is going to make for a very good TV program.
If he gets them.
If he gets them. And we haven't had much of a reason to see that to this point. He has not had a chance to wrestle consistent singles matches again and again and again and keep coming back and being featured in that role. But now that he is, I think there's a good chance that you can have a really bad situation and try and make the absolute most out of it. They're not in as bad of a situation here as could be if, like, this happened when he was wrestling Big Bill or something like that, you know?
Yeah. Actually, if you put the title on Big Bill...
Nothing against Big Bill. I think he's fine. But, like, you know, I'm less intrigued to see weekly Big Bill singles matches than I would to see weekly Rey Fenix singles matches.
Yeah. Thing to do now is not just a hot potato the title around.
Yeah.
I give Phoenix a bit of a run. Mox wins it when he gets back, and then maybe you pick up that storyline with Orange Cassidy again. But I think you need to do something with Phoenix here. Don't make it feel like you're the interim champion.
Yeah.
Because there's every chance he can feel like the interim champion, and I don't want that for Phoenix.
I also don't want that for the title.
Nope, absolutely not. That's the last thing that title needs.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into your Omega chats on this, WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out all of them above the $5 amount. Maybe we'll talk about the Mustafa Ali thing later on. But Ben Blerick is going to kick things off here. He said, I was going to complain about MJF kicking out of a pile driver on concrete and a muscle buster, but I figure I'm better off yelling at Cloud, so I'll see myself out. In all seriousness, I hope Cole and Mox are okay. Man, does it suck for the international title. Orange put it on the map. Mox added more star power to it. Now he's dropped it to a mid-card, mostly tag team wrestler Phoenix in whatever match with little to no build. Of course, unplanned and no disrespect to Ray, but in an instant undid a lot and devalued the title big time. Feels really mid now. Hopefully Mox is okay and can come back soon to regain it, or perhaps Danielson can step in and win it. Do what Cena did with the US title, which seemed like what Mox was going to do anyway. Referee Rick Knox, though. First Alec Reynolds gets concussed and is clearly out, only for Knox to not notice at all. Now Mox, only for Knox to not count the 3, not stop the match, but instead let him take another dangerous pile driver. Yikes. It's a recurring problem in AEW.
Hey, maybe not agree with all of the points about the title feeling mid and such, because I think Phoenix can do a lot with it. But otherwise, kind of hits all the bullet points of our last conversation for the last 20 or 30 minutes.
Kid Cuddy here says, I'm a lead with love. AEW tries their hardest to put on a great show for their demographic, but the fights, Danielson wrestling hurt, Mox wrestling concussed, not to mention Matt Hardy, just gives off sloppy shop vibes. Also, why do the move twice, Phoenix? We don't know. We don't know what Phoenix knows. We don't know what was happening in the ring. Like that, I think that's the other thing I was going to bring up on this. The incidents like this do bring out the I know the most about this. And that's why I have to sit here and I try to not be the guy that knows the most, because I don't. I was not in the ring. I don't know what happened. I don't know what conversations were had. I can only go by what reports have been said and sort of then look at that from a logical standpoint. But there are a lot of people that just step up to be like, he shouldn't have done this. He shouldn't have done this. Like, well, you don't know. We don't know the situation was done there. The reality is he shouldn't have done it, but he might not have known that he shouldn't have done it.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll never know. Well, we might not ever know anyway. But I was, the sloppy shop argument, like, I don't know. You've given 3 examples there that have happened over 3 years. Like, I don't think that gives AEW
I also
a sloppy
don't
shop.
really personally have a problem with Danielson wrestling with a broken arm.
I
don't really care about that one.
It is not ballet. The Matt Hardy thing is unforgivable.
Yeah.
But it is not ballet. Adam West Lapdog here said, obviously I hope for a speedy recovery from Mox and Cole, but in the worst case scenario happens and Cole is sidelined for an extended period, I hope we at least get the silver lining of some backstage skits of him being stuck in a hospital with Roderick Strong.
I really like the skits they did on this show. That doesn't sound like bad TV to me.
A few people also in the chat there being like, this match did have quite a bit of build to it as well.
Yeah, it did.
Which it has. This is a storyline that's been running since pre-All In.
Yeah.
Andy Sandberg said, the first dive really rocked Mox, stumbled around like Naito getting kicked in the head, except whatever happened near the end of the match, and this was the first thing. It probably contributed to him not tucking in for those drivers. Really unfortunate. Saying that, Rick Knox did not communicate or talk to Moxley at most points in the match. Really scary and concerning protocol. The AEW referees are good at their jobs. Knox seems to be the one with the most concerning incidents around him. Remember Alex Reynolds? The fact that Mox got through that match is insane. I'm not sure how to feel about him going through the whole thing, but if he comes out fine and after the rest, I'll be fine. Mox and Knox connection dead before it began. The reality is, S happens. I hope these incidents are learning experience, change referee protocol, and everyone grows from it. Most importantly, more referees need to
F on the rest.
F on the wrestlers. Yeah. He was trying to F on me. Great effing show. Great show. Most title changes on a show? That's probably pay-per-views that have had more.
Probably. I can't think right now, but I would imagine probably. Although not a lot of title changes in AEW happen on pay-per-view, it seems.
A Full Gear had 2.
Full Gear had 2 last year. No, it had 3 last year, didn't it? Because the women's title, the world title, and the TNT title.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, yeah, Joe won it. Yeah, so it's 3.
Yeah.
But on TV? Yeah.
Definitely on TV.
Ryan B said, last night was awesome. I don't know if I'm being a total AEW mark like Ollie, but everything was well paced. The Mox spot had me worried. Even Renee came out and looked really scared. Hope he's okay. Also, don't know if it was on TV. Swerve got a big reaction and the place went bananas.
Well, I think that's for Rampage, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
I think that's for Rampage, yeah. I'm just Marcus said Rey Fenix winning his first title I am excited for, but the way it happened is very unfortunate and made the ending feel weird. Hope the Mox will be okay soon. In happier news, Eddie versus Claudio was amazing, and you could tell what that win meant to him. We are going to get to that very, very shortly. Rob here says, I think head injuries are different because of the CTE issues and because of what we've seen happen down the line to wrestlers because of head injuries. Head injuries are nothing to be messed with.
Nope.
Chozo55 says, idea. Have Phoenix go on a run in other promotions, Visa allowing him, of course, while doing matches in AEW defending it. Assuming Mox gets better in time, and he wins it back at Full Gear on the pay-per-view after that. Funny enough, that actually came up in the All-In press conference, when I think Stephanie Chase asked Tony Khan if he would allow Orange Cassidy to defend the belt internationally, like Pac did when he had the belt. He would defend it at Rev Pro shows.
Yep.
And Tony Khan made the various due point and was like, well, it was quite easy for Pac to defend the title overseas because he lives there. Orange Cassidy doesn't live in England, so he can't just go over there and defend that belt.
Yeah. Where, on that point, like, maybe Rey Fenix can defend the title on a AAA show between now and when he loses it.
Yeah.
Why not?
If they're still doing some stuff with AAA. Are they still doing stuff with AAA?
I think so.
There were some guys that finished up with AAA, though, when it was like, we're not going to be working any more AAA shows. Can't remember who it was now.
I think he still does, though.
Yeah. I don't know. Penta, I think Penta only does. Right, just going to quickly double check. Oh, we've got a few more that's come in. Danny G has been a member for 25 months in a row. Says, hi lads, some of the best runs have been happy accidents. Hope they give Phoenix a decent one, despite him obviously being a bit green in the ring. Oh,
Lol.
Danny. Very good, Danny. Andy here says, post all out, AEW really has been on fire. All the shows have been tight. The wrestlers are showing up. The stories are progressing well. The non-wrestling segments have been great. If the injuries are long-term, I'm worried about the pivot issue. But I'm hopeful that with a prominent win, they can give Phoenix these opportunities. I have faith we won't stagnate right now, and I'm super hopeful for the rest of the build for Wrestle Dream. Despite the bad things, AEW fans are in a great place right now. I think, as a whole, wrestling is in a great place right now, despite what Vince McMahon will tell you about WWE being a stagnant company. Yeah. All right, let's get into the rest of the show. Please do getting your Omega chats in WrestleTalk.com/support. And this show kicked off with easily the best thing on this show.
Yep.
I loved the main event on this broadcast. But the main event was excellent. I really, really loved everything that they did, bar one spot. But holy heckins, nothing comes within an arse's roar of being as good as this opening match.
Nope. We have been waiting and wondering whether Eddie Kingston was going to get a big win in Arthur Ashe for like the last 3 shows.
Yep.
2 years ago, I don't think he was on the show. Last year, he gets screwed over in a match with Sammy Guevara. Still don't know why.
More on him in a bit.
Yeah. And now he finally gets his big moment. And it was really, really cool. Because for so many reasons, like this was the rivalry we were all hoping was going to happen last summer after Blood and Guts to kind of get Eddie Kingston away from Jericho. Still think that's the direction they should have gone. But this is a really fun story. It's been a really good story. Eddie Kingston's Eddie Kingston. His promos are incredible. His promo on Collision got me even more excited for this. And you go in there, and I was watching this match, and I was like, yeah, he hasn't been on TV all the time since arriving in AEW, but I think they've done a really good job with Claudio since he's shown up, in that giving him the ROH World title has given him a reason to be in big title matches on a consistent basis, whether it's in AEW or on Ring of Honor, in those pay-per-views and everything like that. It's given him a chance to just go out there and have amazing matches all the time, which is something we always knew he could do, but was never given the chance to do as consistently as he should have in WWE. And it was like, just in the middle of this match where I was like, I like seeing Claudio wrestle 20-minute championship matches that are just blow away, tear the house down classics.
He's quite good.
He's quite good, that Claudio.
Yeah, that Claudio Castagnoli. This was a title versus title match. It was also for the New Japan Strong Openweight Championship as well. And I loved right at the start of this, Ian Riccaboni, they were showing highlights of their last title match that they had when Eddie got a roll-up and then Claudio reversed that roll-up and got the pin. And it was like Eddie almost beat himself in that because he just took his eye off the ball for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
And Ian Riccaboni, as this match was going, he said that Eddie is wrestling 2-on-1 today against Claudio and against himself.
Brilliant.
I was like, that's a wonderful little bit of salt and pepper seasoning on this meal. Furthered up by Tony Schiavone, who just at one point just went, do you know Claudio Castagnoli loves wrestling? He hates Eddie Kingston. I was like, yeah, that is this, right? Like, he just loves this sport of professional wrestling, but man alive, does he hate Eddie Kingston.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this commentary did a lot to help this match, which didn't need a lot of help because in ring it was just superb. Eddie Kingston, I think, is the most captivating character in all of professional wrestling. And one of the things I think is magical about Eddie Kingston is that he's not on TV a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He can go into storylines and it's awesome, but then for whatever reason, he's not on TV for a bit, or the focus of the story goes somewhere else. You mentioned the Jericho one. Felt like he won that Jericho feud, but Jericho is the guy that came out of it being like, I'm getting the next big storyline, and Eddie's just going to go and do some stuff on Rampage.
Mm-hmm.
But when Eddie comes back, or when Eddie is on TV, you can't take your eyes off him. He's the best promo they've got. He just thinks this is real. And because he thinks it's real, he makes me think it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And he just tells captivating stories in the ring, and his emotions shine through. So when he won, when he hit the series of spinning back fists and hit that powerbomb, and he pinned Claudio 1, 2, 3, and he won the Ring of Honor title, and Claudio shook his hand afterwards, I believed every single moment.
It is fascinating seeing someone like an Eddie Kingston in today's day and age, because the idea of pro wrestling is to make people believe that it's real. And of course, that's very difficult to do now compared to like 40 or 50 years ago when people were just believing that it was real. But you can always have a little bit of doubt when you're watching Eddie Kingston, because I don't know to what degree he hates Claudio Castagnoli. And that's the fun of it. I believe this man every time he's on my screen, and that is such a unique commodity that you can't teach. He's phenomenal, and I would have him be my world champion.
We were kind of talking about this a little bit yesterday in the office, because you and I are going to be reviewing ECW Barely Legal 97 for WrestleTalk Extra. And in that, they've got the Pitbull 1, the Gary Wolf neck injury. And like Paul Heyman talks about this a lot. And he talks about it with the Sandman as well, when the Sandman was blinded. Yeah. He said Sandman, like, he was just everywhere he went, he like was blinded, and he would act like he was blinded to keep the kayfabe up and keep the injury real. And Gary Wolf did the same thing. Like, he walked around with the neck brace with the big protective gear on and stuff if he was going to the shops, just to keep up the idea that he is legit injured, because it makes it feel real. I mean, at least with terrible angle at Barely Legal 97, but that's another story for another time.
Mm-hmm.
That's I have this with Eddie, because I interviewed Eddie on this very channel a couple of years ago. And when he was talking, I really was there being like, I don't know how much of this is Eddie working, how much of this is Eddie just being Eddie, because he's just so genuine. He is just Eddie Kingston. And he will talk about people he doesn't like, and I'm like, I don't know if you're just trying to work an angle. Sean Ross Sapp says he interviewed Kenny Omega once, and he could notice the moments when Kenny just like will switch from being, I'm Kenny Omega, into, I need to build a program here.
Mm-hmm.
It's very subtle, but Sean just ever so slightly just spotted, just, I'm now going to stop answering your questions as Kenny Omega. Now I'm going to start answering them as Kenny Omega, the character.
Right.
And I have interviewed wrestlers before who have said to me, I'm going to do this whole thing in kayfabe. And I can then sort of see this, and I get, I'm going to do this all in character and stuff. Eddie didn't start this off being like, oh, by the way, I'm just going to do this. Like, I was playing up the Eddie King's character. He was just like, I'm just going to tell you what I think.
Yep.
And I don't know how much of that is real, but I believe every single word of it. The man's awesome. And he won this. And Ian Riccaboni was brilliant on commentary. He's so good.
Yeah.
He gave a big shout out to people that Kingston was close with, like Xavier, the second ever champ, was it Xavier? He used to pop up in our chat. Like back in the day, he used to be in our WrestleTalk Podcast chat a lot. Low Key, who's a friend of Kingston Homicide.
Mm-hmm.
Jay Briscoe, who also recently just passed. And even then, and then Tony Giovanni's be like, And also Bryan Danielson and Claudio Castagnoli and Chris Jericho. Ian Rick Buddy's like, let me talk about my Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Let me talk about my Ring of Honor. And now Eddie Kingston is among those. It was awesome. And then somehow they segued from that brilliant realism to a fake-looking hospital while the Kingdom read Get Well Soon cards to next strong Roderick Strong. And I was like, I just sort of threw my hands over the air being like, wrestling's awesome. Wrestling's the best.
Yeah, and talk about this. For 1 second, I don't know why, this is just my wrestling brain. In this segment, I thought they were going to turn on Roddy. And it's only because I think it was Mike Bennett says, "Oh, I'll take it from here, nurse." And I was like, that's what Steve Austin said when Vince McMahon was in the hospital. Like with the same cadence and everything too. My ears picked up and I was like, oh God, Roddy's going to die.
Don't let Taven do it. But Adam Cole rather showed how terrible of a friend he is to Roderick Strong. Because he finally arrives at the hospital to see him and he's like, I'm so sorry, I've just been busy with Max. And now I have to go because Max needs me.
He was there for all of 2 minutes. Didn't even get him some juice.
Not even
nothing.
that. Not even that. It was a flying visit. It took him longer to get there than it was that he stayed.
Mm-hmm.
Later on in the show, they showed Adam Cole and MJF arriving at the building, and then MJF was cutting his promo on Joe. And he goes to do their catchphrase of "Better Than You, Baby." But Cole gets a phone call, and it's from Roddy. And he's like, "Roddy, you're not going to die." And then he's like, Max, I have to go. I have to go now. My other friend needs me. And off he went, which meant that Max was going into the main event alone. I know people are a little bit down on some of the flip-flop of comedy and serious with the MJF Cole stuff, but I dig it, man. It works for me.
It works for me too, because at the bottom of it, like, yeah, I can kind of see what people are saying when it comes to that. Like, sometimes they're serious, sometimes they're not. It's whatever. Maybe some tonal dissonance. But to me, the constant throughout that is I just have looming dread at the thought that one of these two is going to turn on the other. Mm-hmm. The heartbreak that exists when one of them turns is consistent throughout. And I love that. So when in the middle of the catchphrase, Adam Cole takes the phone call instead of doing their catchphrase, I gasped. I was like, oh no.
Speaking of oh no for poor old Darby Allin, Christian Cage was interviewed by Renee Paquette, who challenged Darby to a triple threat match for the TNT Championship on Collision. And in the process of doing this, accidentally called it a handicap match, but then corrected himself to being a triple threat match. But it was just beautifully seamless. It was like, yeah, and we're going to take you on in a handicap match. Sorry, a triple threat match.
I saw a report today that just said people in AEW are very high on Christian Cage. And I was like, yeah, no, pardon my French, but no S. Like, yeah, if you weren't, I'd be concerned.
So, do you think Christian wins the belt?
I think there's a possibility, because I think, like, I had this argument as well leading into All Out when I thought Darby should beat Luchasaurus and win the title, that like maybe this idea of like Christian Cage, the real fake TNT champion, kind of runs its course the best if it's a shorter reign or whatever. Maybe it's just better if they just go, you're awesome. We're just going to give you the belt and have you wrestle and be on TV every single week anyway.
What if Edge helps him?
That's what I'm saying. Like, all of this week, I was looking at this card and I was like, I don't think Edge shows up on this show because I don't know where he would show up.
The second that I saw the tag match was on Rampage, I was like, yeah, Edge ain't showing up.
Yeah, right? So now I'm looking at every other Christian appearance and being like, when can it happen?
When can it happen? And then I was like, having a match at Collision? There.
Maybe there.
That's where it can be.
Michigan is close to Toronto. Edge doesn't live in Toronto anymore, but still.
Okay. So we next got Jericho versus Sammy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good match.
Yep.
It was a totally good match.
Sure.
I'm going no higher than good.
Mm-hmm.
It was more than fine. It was good.
More than fine, less than great.
It was absolutely good. Would I say this was a 3-star match? No. I'd probably say this was like a 2 3/4 match.
Wow. But I'd go a little higher than that.
But
I'd go 3 1/4.
But I would then say 3 with the finish.
Mhm.
The finish was spectacular.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about the finish too.
So the finish, so they were doing this match. We'll talk about the post match angle and everything after that because it's tied into the way that Sammy was dressed for this match. But Sammy went up to hit the shooting star press, and Jericho caught him in that shooting star press in a code breaker and got the win. Perfectly timed.
I couldn't believe it.
Pinpoint precision. This was Black Arrow with the RKO levels of, man, I can't believe you nailed that.
It's very funny. I was looking at this move having happened, and the code breaker is a very difficult move to try and hit on someone who's like falling out of orbit. And we've seen it time and time again where it looks like they're going to do something and then they kind of have to land on their feet and take the move just because they don't have the timing right. And it's tough because it's a move where, similar to the RKO, but the RKO, you can just forego the jump. You can just catch someone and go. But the code breaker, because Jericho needs to leave his feet, he does need to jump. And therefore, because he has to jump, him going down with the move is at a different time than whoever is jumping is coming down with the move. So to hit that perfectly, I was like, my God, that's art. The only other time I've seen him do it is against Rey Mysterio at the Bash in 2009, and that's one of my favorite matches. It is a miracle that they managed to pull this off as well as they did, because I can't imagine they do this even remotely as good if they tried it 10 more times. This is the best one they would get.
And never do the spot again.
Yep. Retire the spot. Retire the code breaker. It's the best code breaker there's ever been. They'll never do a better one.
That's it. We're done now. But so the match was it was good. The crowd were not into it.
They seemed a little tired after the opener.
I
don't know. I couldn't tell if they were actually just not into it, because these guys are both heels, I guess. Sammy's gotten a bit of a baby face.
I think they're baby faces.
Well, then they're bad baby faces.
That's true.
I don't know where they fall exactly, because I understand that there's a portion of the audience that just doesn't like Jericho, because I'm one. Not the biggest fan. Can have great matches. Don't get me wrong. We'll have great matches, but I don't have the emotional connection to him at this point to get really invested in an emotional story like this one. And similarly, Sammy Guevara has been not the best babyface of all time in AEW. He's been a good babyface the last couple weeks or so, I would think. Like him in that tag match with Aussie Open, the people got really into Sammy Guevara, and I was like, my God, they did it. But going into this match with these two having to play off of each other, I don't know how into it the crowd was, and I don't know how much of it is that, and also just being like, whew, man, I love that Eddie just won that title.
Because they were so hot for Yonkers, New York, Eddie Kingston winning the title, beating Claudio. They were like, they went banana, as Pat Patterson would say.
Yep.
And I don't know if they were spent from that. I don't know whether Sammy's entrance killed people because they didn't get to do a Sammy entrance pop because they just wanted to hear the good rapping. Or it is a case of people just aren't into this story. And
I'm not into this story.
I feel it's a combination of the third and the first. I think is a bit of burnout from the Eddie thing. So I just wanted to some more potential breaking news here.
My God,
Sean Ross Sapp. I've been told there was a misunderstanding, and there are rumblings that there will be some talent cuts today in WWE.
Oh, Christ almighty.
So yeah, there might be some talent cuts today, everyone.
It's going to be a 3-hour podcast. It's just going to turn into a breaking news podcast.
Day. Right. Yep. Yeah, we made... Mod Mother, if you can hear me. Rally the troops. It may happen today. This story isn't working. And it plays into the post-match angle here. Because Sammy was wearing the Jericho colors that he had in the Shawn Michaels WrestleMania match.
Mania 19, 2003.
And they did the WrestleMania post-match angle, where they both were celebrating with each other, and then Jericho low-blowed Michaels, and Michaels collapsed into him while he looked down. Did the same thing here. Sammy gave him the low blow. Jericho did the exact same Michaels sell. And it was kind of nice as well because they telegraphed this right at the start of the match by telling us, oh, he's wearing the same colors that he wore in that Shawn Michaels match at WrestleMania 19.
Mm-hmm.
And at no point did I thought, oh, they're going to redo that angle.
Well, that was funny. As soon as they set up the post-match angle, I felt so smart.
It's already started.
Oh, God.
Emma has been released, apparently.
What a run she had. Okay. Well, this is going to be a difficult show to continue to review. I felt so smart. I was like so smug, just like she's already changed her name to Tennille Dashwood. Unless it was already that.
Oh no! So,
oh my God!
48 minutes ago, Tennille Dashwood said this is a dream because they're doing Elimination Chamber in her home country of Australia, and then 3 minutes ago said, "Oops, never mind, I just got released." Oh, that's a heartbreaker.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Okay. Right, okay, guys, we're gonna finish up this show, and then we're gonna have to do another podcast about all the releases and stuff.
Yeah.
Let's try. Let's
continue. I felt so smart watching the end of this match and angle and everything because they set it up the exact same way. It's beat for beat, the exact same. Where Jericho offers the handshake, Sammy shakes his hand, goes in for the hug. As soon as he gave the hug, I was sat next to Holly and I was like, he's going to kick him in the nuts. And then he's going to fall down his body. And then he does it. He kicks him in the nuts. He slides down his body. He pushes him down. And then who comes out but Don Callis, who was not at WrestleMania 19, funny enough. But hey, close enough.
Don Callis welcomed Sammy into the family. They did an angle backstage where Danny Garcia was upset of what Sammy did. I don't know why, Danny. You turned your back on Jericho as well and said you didn't want to be part of his group. That's where all the storyline falls apart. And then Don's like, no, don't go after him. That kid's money because he's still trying to recruit Danny. This is why the story doesn't work. I said this in the edited review. This is the best way that I can describe this. Jericho decided to turn his back on the Autobots and join Megatron in the Decepticons. Now, I'm supposed to feel sympathy because, well, okay, so Jericho wanted to turn his back on the Autobots and join Megatron in the Decepticons, but Megatron revealed, I don't actually want you in my group, and now you've lost your Autobots. And now I'm supposed to feel sympathy because Sammy has joined the Decepticons. Jericho wanted to join that group. Why should I feel bad now that Sammy joined the group instead and Jericho isn't? Like, this story does not work.
Nah.
It's a bad story, everyone.
Yeah. I'm not into it. Not into it, y'all.
Can I ask the live chat to just not say names have been released?
Why do we have to say this every time?
Please, do not just say names. You're not fucking funny. I'll drop a swear. You're not fucking funny. It's not big and it's not clever. Behave. Grow up. Anywho. Then we had the Ray Phoenix and Jon Moxley match. Samoa Joe then cut an awesome promo on MJF. Pete was watching this show in the office, and he just paused after that promo, and he was like, Samoa Joe is terrifying.
Just properly, like, paused it, stood up, and I was like, yes. And he was like, Samoa Joe's really good.
Yeah, Samoa Joe's just really good.
You had to stop your show to say that, did you? He's right, though.
The Hardy Boys, The Kingdom, Best Friends, and The Righteous all cut promos because they're having a fatal four-way on Rampage Grand Slam about... the winner of that match will get a shot at the ROH tag titles at WrestleDream.
Spoilers.
We can go into spoilers. Well, we try not to go into spoilers too much on Rampage. Some people get really annoyed about it. You can go and find out if you want. It's not who I thought was going to win. I don't think it's who anyone thought was going to win, really. But we now don't know if that match is going to happen at WrestleDream.
Yeah, it depends on the status of Adam Cole. Hopefully he just like tweaked his ankle and couldn't walk.
Yeah. And
it's not anything more serious than that.
We then had for the AEW Women's World Championship, Saraya against Toni Storm. Chin up, tits out, watch out for the shoe. This character's awesome.
It's the best character. Might be the best character, like actual character, they've had in the women's division since the company started.
She comes out, it's all black and white now. She's doing her poses. She's not even doing her like biceps pose as she walks into the ring like she's a prize fighting champion. She just walks into the ring and does more. Oh. There's just pictures of her everywhere doing all the poses. It's awesome. Saraya won. I don't think that was the right call.
Nope.
Toni stormed things hugely over. I think Toni probably should have won after she kissed her and gave her the pile driver. But here we are. Saraya dodged a hip attack in the corner in a second rope rampage for the win.
Yeah. This, to me, felt very similar to the conversation I had surrounding the TNT title and everything, where maybe this Christian character can work even better if the title gets off of him and he has to then, keep the same energy, but, pivot and such. And I had the same conversation, I believe, with Sat this past weekend, where I was like, man, Tony's got to win that title. And he's like, oh, but does it work if this, this character that is crazy because she lost the title then gets the title back? And I was like, if you make it work, you could still do it. She's still the most over person in the division.
Look how over she was here. This is kind of like, this reminds me a little bit of the Acclaimed last year, where all of a sudden it was just like, oh, you're the most over act in the tag division. We should probably put the tag belts on you.
Yeah.
And then they did. And that's kind of what happened here is that, Saraya got a reaction coming out. She was getting reaction during the match, but it was nowhere in the same orbit as what Toni was getting.
Nope.
This is working. And the match itself was good. I actually quite enjoyed this match a bit. But it was really down to Toni. It was like Toni was... Because right at the start of this, because Toni's doing a whole she's doing her poses and whatnot. And Saraya slaps her. And it's like, slapped the crazy out of her. And Toni Storm was back. And Toni Storm just started wrestling like Toni Storm again. I was like, this is a fun thing. This is a fun character. I really enjoyed it. At one point, she just slid under the ring and came out and just started throwing shoes at Ruby Soho. It was awesome.
Everyone popped for it, too. Like, I thought there was a real chance that it would be like, what is happening? But no, she came out and had, like, a shoe in each hand. And everyone went, hey!
Look out for the shoe!
There was a guy in the front row that had a watch for the shoe sign. It was like, yeah! This thing!
But yeah, Saraya won with the second rope rampage. At least she retained in her first title defense.
Sure.
Then we got our main event of Samoa Joe versus Bret the Hitman MJF.
My favorite thing on the whole show.
So Max gets the whole Bret turnaround shot. It was done brilliantly. And then Max walks up to the kid, whispers something in his ear. The kid looks up at his dad and goes, I'm adopted? Because he's a scumbag.
I didn't know, where they were going with this. I was like, okay, we're redoing that one extremely cheesy Bret Hart commercial from the 90s. That's cool, I guess. That's a neat nod. And then it ended with that, and I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
Get the belt in forever. Apart from Eddie Kingston, obviously. Eddie Kingston needs to take that belt off him. This match was just Joe immediately going for the neck and murdering poor MJF. He beat this boy pillar to post. He ripped off a New York sports ball thing, and that fired Max up. And he hit the kangaroo kick, which got a massive pop.
I agree with Taz, however. That shirt that he was wearing was a disgrace. He was wearing the logos of all the teams in New York, including the ones that hate each other. And you'd never wear those colors and those logos if you're from New York City. No one in New York is repping the Buffalo Bills. Let's be real.
Is this so in football, you can go to games now and get scarves that are half of one team and half of the team they're facing?
Right. Yeah, that's a no-go.
I'm not really into football these days, but that's a big no thanks from me.
Yeah, anytime somebody you'll see if a player gets traded from a team or whatever, they'll buy a shirt of this team and a shirt from this team, cut them in half, and then sew them together. Stop doing that.
Poor old Andy Datson's getting buried in the office at the moment now because he has spent the last couple of years telling everyone that he supports Liverpool. And then just apropos of nothing said well, I don't always support Liverpool. I sometimes support Newcastle. And I was like, oh, right. So you just support whatever team is doing well then.
You're a coward and a fraud. Have a team, commit, and be miserable like me, Maple Leaf fan.
I mean, look, if I was a football fan, I'd be an Evertonian. We've got 1 point in a possible 15. Like it is not a good start to this season. That is a bad start to a season. But anywho, this match was awesome. The crowd popped huge. Hello, Pete.
Hi.
Are you getting ready to do the breaking news podcast after this?
Yep.
Yep. Thank you, bud. And this really was Joe just murdering poor Max. There was this great moment when MJF went to do a dive, an actual like tope suicida. Joe stopped him and then hit this Death Valley driver on the apron.
Mm-hmm.
Max falls to the floor and Joe laughs his tits off. Joe was having a wonderful time.
He sure was. I love seeing main event monster heel Samoa Joe picking the bones of an injured babyface champion. Unbelievably perfectly cast.
Yeah, it was so great. He then exposed the concrete. They did then say it's not concrete. It's actually just the plastic sheet that covers the grass or something.
Yeah, because it's a tennis stadium.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it wasn't the concrete. I think I might have even said concrete in my edited review, but it's not. They did say it was just the plastic that was covering the grass. But he gave him a pile driver on that, and he hit the muscle buster, and I legit thought, that's it.
Yep.
Max is
Title
done.
change.
Title change. I can't believe they're putting the title on Joe.
I was like, I'm kind of here for it.
I could do with Samoa Joe as AEW World Champion. Like, Joe's one of my guys. This would be rad. I totally bought it as the finish. So when Max kicked out, I was like, oh, come on, man. Joe immediately Kikina clutch. And I was like, oh, that boy's done. Adam Cole runs down from the back so much. He has hurt his ankle and had to go to hospital afterwards and is currently on crutches, apparently. He left the hospital on crutches. And the love he has for MJF, like Pokemon the movie, powered him up and brought Max back to life. And Max was able to get out of the Kikina clutch. And then, through Adam Cole interference, got some tape. And true to his word, he choked out Samoa Joe. This whole match, because he did it in his promo earlier, said, I'm going to choke you out. And I was watching this, but I was like, you're not going to choke out Samoa Joe. Like, he'll do his move and he'll get the win somehow, maybe with a dynamite ring or something. But no, he did choke out Samoa Joe, albeit with cheating where he used tape and stuff.
Yeah, scumbag.
He's a scumbag. And Joe passes out. MJF wins. That was awesome. I loved this main event. I loved the finish.
I did as well. It was funny because I thought that for a moment they might restart the match just because this is the exact same sequence that MJF beat CM Punk with before the match on Dynamite got restarted and he beat him for real, where chokes him with a tape, he goes out, like has the hold, sleeper hold or whatever on, underneath he's got the tape choking him out, and then hides the tape under his armpit. The referee raises his arm, the tape falls, and he's like, what's that? Restart the match. But this time, instead of doing that, MJF immediately gives the referee a hug. It's like, come over here. And Adam Cole jumps in the ring, grabs it, puts it in his tights, and runs away.
Learning. He's like the Terminator. Once you flick that switch, he becomes a learning machine. It's great. Maybe you also learn from your in-ring mistakes when wrestlers get hurt, guys. Yeah. I loved this match. I loved the finish. Joe, classy in defeat, though, shook Max's hand afterwards. Showed him some respect.
Yeah. I was slightly surprised by this. I think more than anything, it made the match feel like a proper blow-off.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is a fun little 1-month feud, and it's done now. We're not going to come back to this. This isn't going to be the title match for Full Gear. Not going to be the title match for Wrestle Dream. Nothing like that. This was your match with MJF and Samoa Joe, and it's done. And part of me is a little disappointed because I think this is really fun, and I wouldn't have been upset if it continued. But also, I will give credit to AEW because we often say that it feels like they drag out storylines far too long. So if you just have a really good, solid, fun 1-month story for the world title, hats off to you.
Yeah, really, really enjoyed this. So yeah, I get this episode 4 out of 5 in the edited review. It's kind of a low 4 out of 5, I think, and really it's more for just the opening and the main event. Although I love the Toni Storm stuff, and I was enjoying the Mox match up until the finish. The only thing on the show I didn't like was the Jericho Sammy thing, and this felt like a nice, tight almost takeover level 5-card show.
Mhm. Yeah, that to me is the big point there, where if you have a big show like this, 2 hours, but a stadium show, which immediately kind of like adds a tick upwards for it. If you just have like 5 matches, 4 of which are title matches, and one of them is like I don't want to say a blood feud, but a grudge match type deal, your card will feel incredibly distinct throughout. Everything will have the time it needs to shine, and therefore, hopefully, you get a very well-rounded card. And I think that's what they really nailed with this edition of Grand Slam. There were trouble and problems throughout, of course. The finish of Moxley and Phoenix we opened with, and I wasn't as big on Jericho and Sammy as well, and I wouldn't have had Saraya win that title. But regardless, I still think the show ends up being very good because the atmosphere and because the opening, the closing, and the lack of needing to cram every single person onto this show.
I enjoyed this a lot. We are going to get into the rows of your Omega chats. Rick Boogs, I just saw his the name. Rick Boogs is, we've got an update on, we've got a running list names. We're going to do another podcast about this shortly. We're going to go live again. So all of your Omega chats about the releases are in a separate document. We're going to be reading those out on that show. So if you are sending in your chats about that, then we'll talk about that on the next show. But we're going to just read out your ones about Dynamite here. I have got Pete. I've got a horrible feeling. 2 of these names are ones I said in 3 count.
Oh dear.
I certainly said Boogs.
I'll get on that.
But yeah, we'll get into that very, very shortly. But for now, let's hear what you thought about Dynamite. And Mikey Alphabet kicks things off to say, awesome AEW Grand Slam. Can't wait to hear your guys' take. Love, and I'm so grateful for all you do. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say.
Thank you very much, Mikey. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Yep.
Yeah, yep. So close. One thing I forgot to say as well, I didn't like the table spot in the MJF match. Could have done without the table spot. What are the rules? Richie R says, I can't stand the kissing spot mid-match. At best, it feels unnecessary, and at worst, it feels downright creepy.
Lesbian treachery!
I fully understand the wrestlers talked about it beforehand, but on screen, there's no need to have someone kissed without consent.
To each their own.
Aaron Hanrahan has been in Menberg for 24 months in a row, says, thanks for 2 years, guys. Hope Moxley and Cole are okay. Gonna meet Moxley at an OTT event in Dublin, hopefully. Eddie Kingston, forever. Hope you're all well.
I also want to point out, I think someone brought up that same point on Twitter, and Saraya was like, I didn't mind it, though. She was like, she could do it again, though.
Pika Pig 123 says, I love Phoenix, but I'm wondering if AEW will end up having Orange Cassidy win the title from him as a bit of panic booking. I also hope that Moxley heals up nicely and is finally able to go on that well-deserved vacation.
I would rather Orange Cassidy not win the title back shortly. If Orange Cassidy's going to win the title back, I want him to beat Moxley in a little while.
If Adam Cole, this is from Andy, if Adam Cole didn't have to check in on Roderick, who was hamming up his injuries, he would not have had to jump the ramp and injure himself. This is all Roderick Strong's fault. I hope he can accept that. I can hope he can accept this is why he is Max's best friend.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. I'm just going to, once again, sorry, I got slightly distracted reading that. Stop posting fake names in the chat, everyone. Justin Evilhide has been in Menberg for 9 months in a row, going, Adam! When Cole leaves and Roddy's in hospital's bed, he starts rising. Cole leaves and Roddy just goes, you're leaving? I was on the edge of my seat. His theme should be a trap remix of him screaming Adam. Dante Kennedy has been in Menberg for 5 months in a row, says, we all talk about WWE's women's tag belts being cursed, but what kind of spell did Brandy put on AEW before she left? All of these injuries? Yikes.
Not sure the connection in all of this, but...
I'm just Marcus said, listen, Luke said it best this morning in the news. Sammy turned on Jericho, and I don't care because Jericho was already going to turn on him anyways until he knew it was a trap. I'm actually on Sammy's side here. Riga said, did no one notice Mox got his bell rung in the opening of the match too? It's what we talked about earlier in the show, that's apparently actually where the injury happened. Ray lands on Mox's head on the rap dive. Mox couldn't stand. Took 2 tries to put him back on the guardrail and he couldn't roll into the ring. Not a work. Took about 1 minute for Mox to come back. Andy Sandberg here says, on Saraya winning.
You keep saying that.
What?
It says Andy Sandbox. You've said it like 3 times every time he chats in.
9-9?
He's just always on my mind. Like I'm a Lonely Island guy. Andy Sandbox says on Saraya winning. I think they're going to be setting up a Mercedes Moné versus Saraya to tie it into history, and Moné wins. It has to be the reason because Toni should have absolutely won.
I don't care though. You know, if Mercedes is coming in, I'm more interested in seeing Mercedes versus Toni Storm because I think it'll be a better match.
Bizarro Big L says, gotta disagree, Luke. Nutshot homages to Danhausen always work. Danny is too over with that dance to go heel. Might be time for a dragon to guide him. The starlet Toni doesn't need a belt and her chase is prime time. We need her shoes as a sledgehammer.
Well, it's too late for that. They already killed the gimmick.
Ollie here says, not that one, says, loving the Toni Storm character, was really hoping she was going to win the title, then next week have a segment doing an acceptance speech. Good luck with the breaking news stream, lads. Unfortunate news. Thank you very much. Stephen Costa's been who's next?
Aaliyah.
She lasted way longer than I thought.
Well, I suppose so. Hasn't
Yeah.
been seen in over a year.
Stephen Costa's been a member for 16 months in a row. Says, hello, lads. It was my birthday yesterday. Woo! Old. I thought the Eddie Claudio match was epic. Good show. Shame about Jericho's time wasting, though.
Happy birthday, Stephen.
Happy birthday to you. Mr. Tough 2 has been a member for 8 months in a row. Says 8 months are still going strong. Keep up the good work. You guys are doing great. Looking forward to the announcement tomorrow. Jam that jam.
There's another one from the previous section as well from Kevin, saying, hoping Mox and Cole get well soon. Seeing those injury news doesn't make me want to watch the show, but your positive review changed my mind. Also gutted about the Mustafa Ali news, but if they won't do anything with his ideas, it's probably for the better.
We'll be talking about that shortly on another stream. Tracy here says, hello, boys. My first Omega chat. Just wanted to thank you all for your reaction videos. When I was sick, I rewatched the PLEs and watched you guys, so appreciate you. Feel bad about Ali leaving and prayers for Mox and Cole. Pete needs a raise. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Irami says, Tempest, did you clock the sudden Packers YouTuber in the front row? Also, not a bad faith take. Maybe AEW could do with the Performance Center. Not because people aren't good enough, but because most professional athletes have access to private training facilities and gyms.
I mean, sure. Why not? Have a place with a ring that I'm sure if they wanted to, they could all show up at the Nightmare Factory and be welcomed in.
Yeah, there are places they can go to.
Yeah. No, I did not see any Packers YouTube people in the front row.
Yabber2 says, Tempest, how much would I need to UltraChat to get you to unmask live on an episode of the WrestleTalk podcast? In all seriousness, I'm curious what happened to the Blackpool Content Club. Is there any plans to do another show in its place? No, is the answer to that. We did a run of the Content Club and the views just kind of weren't there for it, so we're looking at different ways to kind of do those shows.
And I don't know. I like my mask. I don't want to lose it. Give me my yearly salary and I'll consider it.
Caleb here says, I know this is the wrong channel, but my suggestion for NRB would Unstable Unicorns is my favorite game. I hope all is well. Terry that Terry.
Terry that Terry indeed.
Well, that is going to do it for this show. I'm just going to end this poll and quickly press there. End poll to let us know what you thought of this episode of the show. And I can confirm 82% thumbs up, with 13% saying thumbs in the middle.
People like Grand Slam.
It was a very good show. It was a very, very good show. If you haven't watched it, I would highly recommend you guys certainly watch the Eddie Claudio match because it was awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll be back shortly. Might be here, could be on WrestleTalk News Channel.
It's on podcast.
It's on podcast. We'll be live here again shortly, going through the releases. We're just going to need to get things set up here. So we'll post it up. Subscribe, enable notifications, and you'll find out when we are going live. And we can talk about all of the incoming releases to talent. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been Luke Owen, DAD. That has been Tempest. Jam that jam.